Yo, what is up guys, it's your boy Mike. You already know what is up and what is good, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about why the Rockets are still contenders and why you shouldn't count them out just yet. Now, if you guys are new to the channel and just now find me for the very first time, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the family. Now I want to start with the OKC argument. Now, I know you guys are probably wondering what the OKC argument is, because it's probably something you haven't heard before, or maybe have, but just rarely hear it. And I think it's a pretty good point to match up here with this team with OKC. Now, when I bring up OKC, or anyone brings up OKC, they always have some negative things to say, mostly about the series against the Jazz. They were missing a key piece in that series and throughout a huge chunk of the season. And when he got injured, their defense in OKC got a little worse, and notice when that player got injured, things took a downward turn for that team. And that player is Roberson. But people always say Roberson wasn't the difference. He doesn't make an impact, he can't even shoot. I get that. He isn't the best shooter on the team, but he is one thing for sure: their best defender. Their best wing defender. But the Rockets lose their two best wing defenders, and that is the main reason why people are not putting them as high as they were last year, because of that defense they don't have anymore, and those defensive players that they lost. But what bothers me is OKC didn't get that same feat. They didn't get that same excuse, lack for a better term, when they lost their best defender. But when the Rockets lose their two best defenders, and they lost two in Trevor Ariza and Luka Mute, they lost two. And that's the biggest hole that you could say for this team going into next season, is that they won't be as good as they were on defense as they were last year. They'll still have the offense, no question about it, but their defense won't be the same, and that is why people aren't putting this team where they were last year. My main point is this: defense is more important than you think it is. And some people are all about that. Some people already know defense is more important than offense. But when you have both, that's what makes you really good, and that's why they were so good last year. Okay, so I'll get back to that later in the video, but let me just go over who they lost, but not that, also what they lost. Now, what the Rockets lost this offseason was simple. They lost key defensive players, and Trevor Ariza to the Suns, and Luka Mute back to the Clippers. So you could say they lost their defensive identity. Now, they still have Chris Paul and Clint Capella, who are exceptional defenders, but not wing defenders. And what made the Rockets so good is that they had such good wing defenders that if and when people got around those players, Clint Capella was their last resort. One of the best shot blockers in the league was their last resort if players got around their best wing defenders, who are exceptional defenders, if that happened and when that happened. And now that's gone. That's really the main thing what they lost this offseason, was their defensive identity. They won't be the same team on defense like they were last year. And another important thing, which I think is still pretty important, but not as important as their defense, they lost the Ryan Anderson contract, which was huge for them. They opened up so much more cap space for them, allowing them to sign players that they were wanting to sign, and potentially signing new players in the future. So let's talk about what the Rockets gained this offseason. They gained some defense. They got James Ennis and Michael Carter-Williams to go along with Marquise Chris. James Ennis' highest priority will probably be on the defensive end. Same with Michael Carter-Williams, unless he has improved his shot, because we both know that both of these guys were not the best shooters, but they could still shoot the ball. They just weren't great at it. So these guys will probably be your new Ariza and Luka Mute, but just not as good defensively. Like I said, they were never really great shooters. But hopefully that will change while they're here in Houston. And then you got Marquise Chris. He's a little hard to control, but he's talented, athletic, and decent at defense, and on help defense as well. And of course, the Rockets gained a lot of offense. You still have Harden, CP3, and Capella, and now you guys bring in Melo. Melo's a much greater fit here than he was in OKC, and not many give OKC the knock for that. Carmelo Anthony can still get you 16 to 18 points a game, and some nights even like 22 to 25, but he wasn't doing that with Russell Westbrook. Melo's a shooter and a post-ISO player. He was forced to play in a situation he wasn't used correctly, and not to mention a whole new situation at that. And on top of that, coming off the bench was made a public suggestion for Carmelo Anthony, and he said no. And he was also forced to play the 4 when he doesn't usually do that. Now here in Houston on the Rockets, he can return to his more natural position as a small forward, where he dominates that position on offense. And more importantly, guys, it's where he's comfortable. That's where fit comes into play. He wasn't comfortable in OKC, that's why he didn't really fit there. He fits here in Houston. So let's move into that. Fit. James Harden is more of a score-first player than Chris Paul. But don't get me wrong, James Harden is an outstanding passer. Melo is also a score-first player. So with Chris Paul being more of a facilitator, but definitely has the ability to score the ball, you expect Chris Paul to play more with Melo than Harden to play with Melo. These will probably be your most played duos on this team, and don't get me wrong, they all will play together for sure, but you have to factor in playstyles here, which OKC didn't do with Melo. First thing being Chris Paul and Harden, then you got Chris Paul and Melo. So they stagger the minutes just like they did last year, just adding another player to that. They will all start together, then Harden will probably sit, then you just swap Harden and Melo. When Chris Paul sits, that's when you let Harden or Melo do their thing with the second unit, until Mike D'Antoni decides to put Chris Paul back in the game. And there was a report that Mike D'Antoni wanted to rest Chris Paul more and not wanted him to play so much and not push him too hard until he needed to, so definitely look out for that as well. The Rockets are going to have a lot more high scoring games, and I'm not just talking about them, I'm talking about both teams. I'm talking like 126 to 115 or games like that, because like I said earlier, their defense is not the same. So with all these offensive weapons, they're going to have a lot more high scoring games, and not like what we had with the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, because the Rockets won't be able to defend at that level anymore with the pieces they lost. But they will definitely be able to come back at you on the other end on offense. And of course, I'm not saying they'll be terrible on defense, just not as good as they were last year, obviously. Now let's talk about my OKC video. And now if you haven't seen my OKC video, which I'm sure you have because it's like the best video on my channel, it's the most popular one. But if you didn't see that video, I stated in that video that OKC is the best matchup against the Warriors. But I never said they were the better team. That video was fully on how the Thunder were a better matchup against the Warriors in the West. Just the Western Conference. I'm not counting in Boston and all those teams in the East. Just in the West. That video was purely how the OKC Thunder were the best matchup against the Warriors. And how if the Warriors and Thunder got into a series, me personally, would take the Thunder in a 7-game series. But I never said the Thunder were a better team than the Rockets. There's a difference between being the better matchup and being the better team. And the Rockets are the better team. But are they the better matchup? I don't think so, but they definitely could turn into that if things go well for this team next season. Now the biggest thing and the most important thing that I want you guys and you Rocket fans out there, and maybe just Warriors, if you don't like the Warriors, this is the biggest and most important thing that you can look forward to. This is the biggest thing that you guys can take away from the Rockets team that they still have. Why the Rockets still have a chance to beat the Warriors. That can still have a chance of the Warriors being taken down. And that is, they still have Chris Paul, James Harden, and Clint Capella. When combined playing together, they were like 53-5 in the regular season. And now you're adding a Carmelo Anthony, excited in a new role here, and has another chance to redeem himself from that last season with OKC. And I'm sure he'll shine there in Houston. So as long as the Rockets team still has those three players together and push for 60 wins, and I think they'll finish with 60 on the dot. I think they'll finish with 60 wins. I don't see why they can't make another run at the Golden State Warriors, and we may see them again in the Western Conference Finals against the Warriors. So, with all that being said, guys, let me know what you guys think about the 2018 Rockets. How big will Melo's impact be on this team? Will we see these teams again in the Western Conference Finals like I said? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Thank you guys for sticking out this far in the video. Again, if you guys are new to the channel and just now finding me for the very first time, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the family. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching this video. It's been your boy Mike, and you can let that beat drop.